Hey everybody, this is Spoonie, and unfortunately, it's starting to look a lot like Kerbal Space Program 2 is going to be cancelled. While we don't know all of the details yet, the developer's parent company Take-Two has announced further layoffs in recent days. For those of you who subscribe to my news updates, you may remember that a couple weeks ago, it was announced that Take-Two was laying off nearly 600 employees. At the time, it appeared to be merely part of scaling down production on a major title, that is Grand Theft Auto 6, as it approached its completion. But it is now clear that these layoffs are more specifically part of an overall headcount reduction of roughly 5% by Take-Two in an effort to, quote, rationalize their pipeline and maintain margin profile. The company said that it will be eliminating several projects in development and streamlining its organizational structure. While they did not elaborate on specific projects that were on the chopping block, companies are required to issue a 60-day notice to workers who will be laid off. This notice is called a Worker Adjustment and Retaining Notification, aka WARN. And on April 29th, there was one issued for a Take-Two office in Seattle and lists the closure as permanent, affecting 70 employees. This is both the location and roughly the number of employees of Intercept Games, the developer of Kerbal Space Program 2. The day that this warn was issued, a developer on Twitter who worked for the Kerbal Space Program 2 developer posted that they had been laid off, inquiring about new development opportunities. This is unlikely not related to the fact that the company also recently purchased Gearbox Entertainment, the studio behind Homeworld and Borderlands, for nearly $500 million. A lot of these things at first don't seem like much on their own, but when you look at the larger picture, it starts to come together. If you want to stay up to date and be ahead of the curve on a lot of these developments as they're unfolding, each week I come out with short, easy to digest videos that give you the highlights of what's going on in gaming, along with some quick looks at upcoming games you might be interested in. I keep these videos short and straight to the point, usually around 5 minutes, so that you can get the info you need and then get back in the game. Hit the subscribe button now so that you don't miss out on any of the latest gaming news updates. As some of you also know, I recently released a video in which I vented some of my frustrations over the current state of Kerbal Space Program 2 and primarily the lack of communication from its developers, although now some of that makes a lot more sense.
The only time I would be concerned about this game's future is if the community went silent, right? If I heard crickets, then I would probably be worried for my job.
Even though the warn was issued just this week, it is likely Intercept Games was well aware that they might be part of this pipeline rationalizing and might be facing layoffs for months before anything was made official. And while Intercept Games hasn't directly commented on this yet, GameDeveloper.com did manage to get a statement from Private Division, a subsidiary of Take-Two, about Kerbal Space Program 2. They said simply that, quote, the label continues to make updates to Kerbal Space Program 2. And that's true. Just days ago, we did finally get an update from the developers about an upcoming incremental update and assurances that they are still working on colonies. But that update came out several days before the warn was issued, so who really knows? And moreover, the label isn't shutting down until late June. So does that mean that we'll be getting updates until they shut down? What is the future of Kerbal Space Program 2 after those updates, and after the label is potentially shuttering in June? While Private Division did claim that the label continues to make updates, they didn't say anything about for how long, and more importantly, they didn't say that the game would continue to be developed. Just that at this present moment, the label is continuing to update the game, which could mean any number of things. For anyone who's familiar with corporate speak, what they specifically don't say is often more important than what they do say. They allegedly declined to elaborate further when pressed on this subject. Something I did find interesting though about the recent development update was that they claimed the majority of the team was focused on the colonies update, which is a little bit different from what the creative director said in an interview with Matt Lone back in December. Maybe I'm just looking for answers here, but in that interview it was discussed how the team had been reorganized into feature-specific groups so that they could more efficiently reach roadmap milestones, and at the same time give developers a more intimate knowledge of specific feature mechanics within the game. But now it appears that that team is entirely focused on colonies, stability, and performance. My fear, and again I'm just speculating, is that the team is using the weeks it has left to finish up the colonies update and maybe a few other features that might be close to completion. Then they'll just optimize and stabilize as much as they can before they close down. Again, we don't know with absolute certainty that Intercept Games is the Washington studio Take-Two is closing down, but all signs are pointing to it, including members of that team posting that they have been laid off, so it's not looking good. If it does come to pass that Intercept Games closes, that doesn't necessarily mean that Kerbal Space Program 2 won't ever be finished though. After all, Intercept Games isn't even the first studio to be working on the game. When it was first announced back in 2019, the game was being developed by Star Theory, which was shut down in 2020 when the game moved over to its current developer. So maybe the IP will be moved once again to another one of Take-Two's developers, or maybe sold off entirely to someone else. A new developer can mean a lot of things, but it will at the very least mean a significant delay in production. I would honestly be surprised if we see this game completed anytime in the next several years, if ever. And that just sucks. Also, given that Kerbal Space Program 2 has seriously struggled to keep a meaningful number of players engaged with the game, I'm not sure another studio is going to be willing to buy it in its current state. All in all, this is probably the worst news I have gotten in gaming so far this year. Maybe in the past several years. Kerbal Space Program 2 was and still is one of the games I look forward to the most. But what do you guys think? What I personally hope happens moving forward is that the IP is sold off to somebody who cares a little bit more about it. And in the meantime, I hope we get a few more expansions to Kerbal Space Program 1, because after all, if they were to add interstellar travel and update the graphics a bit of Kerbal Space Program 1, it would have everything I personally wanted out of Kerbal Space Program 2 anyway. For me, multiplayer always seemed like something that Kerbal Space Program wasn't missing, so adding it in always felt like something unnecessary that was just going to overly complicate the development of this game. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you all think. If Intercept Games closes, should they sell off the IP, develop it with a different studio within Take-Two, or just start expanding on Kerbal Space Program 1? Don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps my channel, and if you want to stay up to date on gaming news and developments, make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.